Hello.
Hi.
So
Welcome to
it
the Love
is
Foundry.
the Love Foundry, the 25th of April, Friday.
Friday.
And so, how's your day? All right?
Very well. It's going very well.
Okay, well, that's excellent.
How about you, sir?
Yeah, fair to medley. I'm not complaining. It is Friday.
We call it
So,
a Aloha Friday over here.
yeah. So, I'm just looking at some laundry here. All right.
So
I'm
what's
trying
up?
to see. I put a name. Oh, expressing love fully. That's what I decided today was about.
Expressing love fully.
And because
Well,
yeah.
expressing, so you're putting love out.
Well, the difference is, I was thinking about it, and we retain it within us, even when we're friends with it. When we think we ought to have a good relationship with love, we bottle it up because we're not sure how to express it, as if we had to. Love does its own expressing. There's nothing you can say about how it chooses, but you can be willing. And the human race has been against the idea of it for a long time. Do you have a microphone on your computer?
I do. I've got the Yeti plugged in though.
Oh, okay.
Does it
So
sound good?
it sounds fine, but can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yep. Clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never know quite what your setup is.
So
So go ahead.
when you say humanity's been against love, um, but that hasn't been a conscious thing, right? It's not like we're actively, consciously against it.
Yeah, no, I think we're actively against it. How
Mm-hmm.
conscious you are that you are actively against it depends on how often you've been doing it.
Right.
If you started out a long, long time ago being against love, any way that it was expressed, by being taught to, not because you even had anything against it personally, you're just
Mm-hmm.
taught to. That's a bad thing. Don't, whenever you see that push that away. When you're taught by people of authority, parents, priests, the boss, the dictator, when you're taught by people of authority or power that we believe have more authority and power in the material world than we do, then we are persuaded by their ideas to conform to them.
Yeah, it's true.
We are, and we do. And so, and it becomes a general malaise in the culture when we become, we don't like them because of their race. We don't like them because of their religion. We don't like them because we never even stop to figure out who they are,
Mm-hmm.
or if they're nice people or not nice people. We just made wholesale group rejections, which is a rejection of love. Reject any part of the circle and you reject the whole circle as far as love is concerned, because you don't get to pick and choose. It's it's not like love's making a judgment about it. Oh, she doesn't like pygmies, so she's out. Uh, the pygmies can do all right with or without your love. The thing of it is it's an action inside ourselves that carries the whole of love with it, because love can't separate itself and say, okay, I'll dislike the pygmies with you, but I'll like everybody else with you. It doesn't know how to do that. So what you're saying is liking the pygmies is out. Well, then love says, okay, then I guess I'm out because I like the pygmies. It doesn't have a choice. It just can't be divided.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we can think that that's not true, but it's because we have never fully experienced in our memory. We have not a memory of fully experiencing the sensation of being one with love, of having it moving through your cult, through your consciousness, through your body, through your emotions, through your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, not having experienced that, you don't notice it when it's gone.
Yeah.
So
Right.
until we develop a relationship of empowerment with it and feel what it's doing in our life constructively, will we notice when it's not. Then it will be like, oh, hell, where'd love go? Well, you just hated on something and you pushed it out because it doesn't do hating on something. And if you come back to not hating on something, then you're inviting love back into your space. And love's so instantaneous that the coming and going of it in our nature is impossible to even imagine in terms of, oh, here it comes. So if you're going to express love fully, you're going to have to find your sense of it. And because you like love on a personal level, you like it. You like the idea of it. You like the idea of growing into it. You like the idea of being able to have it support your life in lots of ways that maybe you don't know how to support it the way love does. But that doesn't mean it's doing it. It doesn't mean you're doing it.
No, but I have come to a place where I trust that. I completely trust it. So
Trust it in what way?
trusted that love knows that knows how to support my life better than I, want to. Like the things I want are so ridiculous compared to the things that if I trusted love to just guide it and let it unfold the way that love does, I completely trust that love is going to do a better job than my wants, my desires, my short-sighted kind of views. Not that I really have a lot of those to begin with, but it's like you get these these like this desire nature or this longing for something, and it's like I've almost come to a place where that just gets kind of pushed aside because I trust love knows better than those things, right? And it's like the more I practice that, more I put that into practice, just kind of pushing that, ego desire or whatever it is that's stirring up in me that I think I want something, I just kind of let that go. And like instantly it's like the whatever it was that was wanting to create that in my life goes with it. It's like something else steps in. And I don't know if that's exactly what you're talking about here, but it's like there's an inner directive that far exceeds any of these little byways that pull me this way and that way. There's like a centering point that I trust love. I trust it more than I trust the things that come up. And it's funny because there's the intuition side of things. Now that is different than what I'm talking about here. It's like when intuition nudges you, that's like the same trust that I have in this love to know better than I personally know. That intuition, if you give cadence to it, if you let it in the space, then it's like you feel aligned with love. And as soon as that happens. So I'm getting better at recognizing the intuition versus, I want to do this for whatever reasons I come up with. So I don't know if this is tracking exactly, but I wanted to bring a personal experience because I have a tendency to let it become a game in me, not purposely, but it's like, oh, step here, step there, it's like becomes this mental game inside of trying to be alignment, step into this now, posturing with love. And it's like, don't let it become the game. That's, it's like just trust the love and trust the intuition side of your mind and not the other side, not the trying or the wanting. Okay, I know I'm babbling, Dan. You're giving me the look. Let me just stop for a minute. Slow down.
Well, it's okay. It's fun to watch it. But if someone's following the conversation, then it can get stretched a little thin because you're not actually on point with all of those elements. Intuition has its own relationship to love and to our ability to be aware of what's going on in the environment. And so if people don't have those distinctions, and most of them don't, most people don't even know what intuition is. So it's if you don't pause and regroup, then they don't, because we're talking about expressing love fully, which if you're doing that, then intuition will be available to you, because it's an aspect of that comes into consciousness when love is available to us in our awareness. So we need to see the distinctions and how they support each other, so that people can discriminate themselves when it's happening in them, and what's happening in you may or may not be intuition. We don't know for sure. We know you are spending time and energy analyzing it. And by the way, I like games that engage love. and what it comes down to is the journey towards love. The journey towards love is a long journey from, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's even around. I don't know if it's even real. Maybe it's just an emotion. Maybe it's just somebody's thought about it. From that state of uncertainty, even earlier than that, when you're not even having a question about it, because there's no question to have, you haven't differentiated the concept of love from any other concept. So even at that early stage of human awakening to love, from there to empowered by it, fully empowered by it, because we're talking about expressing love fully, which is a far state of it. You've gotten a long ways into it before that's going to happen, before you're going to express it fully. So on that journey, you're going to have all these different stages. And when you're at one stage too long, then you're going to say, okay, I got to move on to the next phase of this operation, because I'm feeling like I haven't graduated myself into the next level on my journey to empowering myself with love. Because empowering or expressing love fully is just the way you name a certain stage of activity. There's a lot of different things that can be described at that stage. That's when you're realizing there's no separation between you and love. Never was, never going to be. And so if there isn't any separation between you and love, then you and love are commingling all the time. There never was any without it or with it. Nobody loves me. I don't love anybody. Those things are all just artificial states of mind in a world of illusion that believes that love is separate from life and occasionally drops in on it to give surprise parties or something. Well, that's not exactly correct. So, and intuition, when you go to intuition, now you're opening up something that interacts with mind, because intuition is a function of mind. Mm-hmm. Love is in it because you have to be in the environment of love with consciousness in order for intuition to appear. You might call intuition the mind of love. That would be a good way of describing it in our little limited point of view. So, but it's not all there is to it. It's a process that gives you in your consciousness what's passing through the consciousness of other beings, what they know. What other beings know can become your knowing through love, through a relationship to this energy that connects you to what everyone else actually knows, not what they believe or fantasize or wonder about or think, what actually through their experience has proven itself as knowing. Mm-hmm. Now that's a wonderful gift, because you don't have to have the same experience to have that knowing, which is one of the huge advantages. There's so many advantages to having love as a conscious aspect of your life, and having the ability to know things in advance of the experience, which is the opposite without love. Without love, you have to gain the knowing through having an experience.
Right.
I don't know if there's any pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We're going to have to follow it to get there and find out. And that's the way knowing functions in a world absent the consciousness of love. If love's not expressing fully through you, how are you going to enter into other people's knowing? Because knowing can only be shared. You can have knowing, but if you want to share it with others, it's going to be through love that you share it. Mm-hmm. Now, those beings that have had vast and great experience in the universe over maybe ancient cycles of time have a lot of knowing.
Yeah.
And you can have it. They're not withholding it from you. If they're invested in love, beings that are invested in love don't withhold their knowing. You won't. You don't. You're spending mad time teaching your kids how to hold the knowing that you already have to their difficulties and rejections and non-attention.
My husband too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny because he's reading, he listens to books on tape, but he decided to listen to the King James version of the Bible that has Old Testament and New Testament. And he's moving through these Old Testament stories. And, he's explaining to me like the first couple hours of it is just like lineage. And they have everything mapped out, and it's funny because he'll tell me what he's hearing and I'll kind of, we'll have conversation back and forth, and it's, funny to see what he holds on to. And then, I've spent some time studying esoteric stuff. So I'll kind of offer a different side to things. And it's so funny because he's finally gotten to this New Testament. And you know how we've talked about, we're not about religion here, but there's a lot of history in the Bible, right? And so he's like, it's funny to hear this distinction because they talk about the Christ and they'll talk about Jesus, right? And it's I don't want to say it's separate things, but he says that after hearing, me and Dan talk a lot about Christ, and it's not like we're talking about Jesus, we're talking about Jesus, and there's a distinction. But just from that association, as he's listening to this Bible, which he's never done, he hears a distinction between kind of Christ and, love being talked about or being demonstrated through this character of the Christ versus this character of Jesus. And it's funny because he sees this, it's not a separation, but there's a distinction between the two, from Jesus, who's expressing this love, right? And the Christ that is this love. And it's kind of interesting to hear because he's coming at it from, he doesn't spend any time doing this kind of work, but he's been associated with it through me and through you to some extent too.
Well, the whole world has. That's the beauty of, you could say, well, a person.
But he sees the difference. He's like, he can see when the love is taking place in the story and when Jesus is demonstrating it. So I just wanted to bring that to this conversation because this came up. And
also remember that he is and the Bible itself is a massive doctrine.
Yeah.
And the interpretation of it is up to you.
Mm-hmm.
So he's interpreting something for which he has only been accidentally prepared. And when you spend time having different people interpreting the Bible, not Christians necessarily, but Christians, there's been some pretty good Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And their interpretation of passages in the Bible, or what the meaning is behind a discussion in the Bible between what Jesus meant when he said something, is subject to all kinds of error. Not that the book is in error, but the interpreter doesn't have the experience to interpret what's being said from the place it's being spoken. There are times in the Bible when Jesus is speaking as himself.
Mm-hmm.
My point of view. And then there are times in the Bible when love is speaking through him. And he doesn't make distinctions when it's happening and when it isn't happening. You have to bring that distinction to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing is true for Johnny, when he's listening to it, he's not being told by the person who's reading it, but they're having their own thoughts about it. So that's imposing itself on the conversation. So he's listening and thinking, oh, okay, this is something, this is a distinction between this character, this Jewish man, and the Christ consciousness, which is God living in a human form.
Yeah, we were talking about that last night.
Yeah, and that may be the first time he's ever seen that distinction.
Mm-hmm. But it's pretty remarkable to see. I mean, for me to witness it, seeing someone come to that on their own and see the distinction between the two and understand it in an experiential way, because it's like bringing yourself to that party instead of someone talking at you. It's like he's able to actually take that knowing from what's ever being expressed through the stories and the words and the characters, and he's able to actually, be with it, so to speak.
Right.
So
and
it's
nobody
incredible.
had, and not to make this on a religious platform,
No,
but
not at all.
but to make the point, there's virtually no one in the Christian camp, which are those who have spent a lot of time discussing it and thinking about it and articulating what they interpret, who's speaking when and what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
And so none of those people are bringing up the relationship of Maitreya to the whole experience.
No.
And that's a challenge and a difficulty for the Christian religion that's coming up relatively soon, because in the reappearance of the Christ, see, you're talking about the reappearance in a human of Christ consciousness, will not be in the form of Jesus.
No.
That form has been long since discarded, except in the mind of humanity. And we don't have enough data on from one lifetime to the next, or how things went, to know what happened to him. Where is he? How is he going to reappear? And who's he going to be? Because it is the person of Maitreya, who is the embodiment of that consciousness for the whole world at this particular time, that you're going to have the conversation with, which doesn't mean you can't have a conversation with the entity who had the privilege of being Jesus 2,000 years ago, but he's animated other entities since. And that's not that was an eliminated prohibition in Christian teaching. When they decided they're going to remove reincarnation, they decided to remove an aspect of life that functions. It's a functioning aspect of life. And with it comes a whole interpretation of how things work. And that's not something that Jesus eliminated. It's not something that he made a prohibition about, or any one of his disciples. They did the opposite. They expressed things in the Bible that indicate the function. Jesus himself did it when he asked his disciples, "Who do people say I am?" And some of them said, "Well, some people think you're the Son of Man," which meant that he himself is a descendant of becoming a human being and growing up in the human race into somebody that he is. Some people think you're the Son of God, which he is, because every human is.
And then the exact conversation I had last night with Johnny.
Right. And then some people think you're Isaiah, or they think you're one of the other prophets, which he actually had been in a previous incarnation himself, prophesized himself in a sense. And so, like 500 years before he was born. Yeah. So there's no prohibition to any of this conversation about how things move along and how we take on different identities by the originator of the Bible itself. But there is a distinction in the leaders of the churches that make up that teaching, because they were told to. at the meeting of Nicaea, somebody got together and said, oh, why don't we take this part out? We're going to make Jesus an immaculate conception for his mom, an official doctrine, physically virgin. And we're going to take out reincarnation. And we're going to do some other things. And so they laid waste to the story with what they thought would best serve either human interests or the interests of the church, one of the two. And that's the story that they decided to go forward with. And there are very few people who can go back and see the original story by watching it in the Akashic record or looking at it how it's understood by people who have a full appreciation of love. That it's then you see what actually is going on here. And it's a really big story, bigger than human beings imagine. So it takes time, and it takes an openness to love. You have to be open to the idea that it's nothing's right or wrong. Stick with the love. If you stick with the love, which was the subject of the whole story, then you don't argue with anything.
Answer me this. So stay open, absolutely, 100%. But then if we were to take it just one little step further, and we weren't just open, but we had an open invitation, would that be the same as kind of putting action to it? Because there's a passivity when I think of just being open. But if you have openness with this invitation to love, and you have that working at the same time, does that
it's part of it, but it's not the one that I'm focused on today specifically.
Okay.
But it's an important aspect of it. That's you being open to love itself within you. You're open to more understanding, to a deeper realization of how this whole thing is real.
Right.
There's that which we think about things, which is not a whole and perfect reality. But then there's what the whole and perfect reality actually is. So you're growing from where you are, partially aware of love, partially conscious of love. Remember, the only perfect perception, the only perfect point of view is love's point of view. And when you have that point of view, then you're going to see, as Paul put it in the Bible, we're going to know even as we're known. We're going to see the way we are seen by others who are in that perfect point of view. So love sees you. It sees everything. Because it's the creator of everything, it's holding a constant state of beingness with it. It's love's in constant creation. It doesn't create that painting behind you and then go off and do another one somewhere else. It's in constant creation of that painting. It's a multitasker. It can do a number of things. And the amount of love that's in that creation is how clear the painting is. It doesn't have the same perfect clarity when it was, well, of course, if that's the hand-oiled painting, then it has a certain kind of presence. And if it's a copy of it printed on something, then it's a different one generation removed. But from our point of view sitting here, we wouldn't see the difference. We just see who's that guy? What's his name?
Vladimir Kush.
Vladimir Kush. Yeah, he does some he has a pretty interesting perspective on one angle of life. And he paints from that angle, and it's sort of in there somewhere, fantasy world, but not. So that's one part of what I'm talking about. That expressing love fully, that's the inputting side. You're letting love express itself fully to you, and you're receiving as much of it as you can, so that through you, it can express itself fully to life. And if you're going to interpret it in your intellect and interpret it in your emotional body, and then express what that interpretation feels like or looks like in your mind, then you're going to filter out the livingness of love.
It's pretty amazingly
100%.
Beautiful, right?
Huh?
Pretty amazingly beautiful. It's like, because you're the only one that's capable of that expression of love. And it makes you so significant to the whole of it, right? It's like I don't really
Well, it
spend
does as
enough
far as
time
the rest
looking
of
at that
the human
angle.
race.
It is, and it's, you know, it always brings me back to that place of reverence every single time, and I try to keep those same eyes open towards everybody I look at, you know, and keep free from judgment, so that maybe if I can look at them, it helps free them up to express that love through themselves, you know, because there's this invitation and openness for me to see it and receive it. So, you know, I don't have
Well,
any intention behind it, but I'm just saying, you know,
no, and how,
I
look,
strive towards that.
the thing that we're talking about here is, are you doing that? There
Yeah.
are, I mean, there's a lot of human beings on the planet, and all of them added together, the amount that they're expressing love is how much the human race is giving of it to the world. That's it. That's the sum total. It's coming through other lives, through other beings, through beauty and the art of nature. But all of the human beings consciously expressing love is that much of it that we are giving to one another and to ourselves. But you expressing love fully is a number between 0 and 100%. And where are you in that? How much would Taylor express?
I'm hoping for 1%.
Yeah, well, it's good to set your goals at a reasonable height, and then that way you're not going to be disappointed later. Because, and I would say that you may have a ways to go to get to 1%, nothing personal. Because the sensation, is that one of yours? Your little mugs? You muted yourself.
I said, ironically, she's bringing me something that came from James Daniel.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell her to open it.
Okay. She's
No.
gone. I'll tell her later. It's not a pony.
No, it's not a pony, but it's similar to a pony. It has something to do with the horsepower. Anyway, I'll let you work that out later. So if you're going to express love fully, it's going to have to pass through, and it has to pass through mind, because that's one aspect of your personality. It's going to have to pass through your emotions. That's one aspect of your personality. And it's going to have to pass through your physical form, which is an aspect of your body, which becomes an aspect of the personality because it's a female form and it's called this and it looks like that and it does this. Mm-hmm. So to 100% express love, expressing it fully through you, it's going to have to come through all three. Through your touch.
Yeah, it's one thing you don't really think about. You don't think of it coming through your physical body.
No. And I
like that distinction you made earlier too about, you know, artificial mind, because once you make the distinctions, it's easier to recognize.
Well, sure. Then it's revealed to you to a greater degree than it was. Mm-hmm. I was in a restaurant the other night with Larry and Jack and somebody else, remember who. And it was an Italian restaurant, and the lady that owns it was from Italy. And a good friend of Larry's. I had only met her once before in that restaurant. But she was demonstrating herself. And I was watching that demonstration because she was attending the room and attending the restaurant. And she went over and put on an apron and made the pizza that we were going to eat. She had a lot of different engagements in what she was doing because it's her restaurant. But I realized that's something that the Italian people do that other people don't do nearly as well. They fully engage themselves in what they're doing. When they're doing something, they don't engage just their mind in it. They engage their mind, their emotions, and their physical anatomy in a way that develops a sense of integration with itself over
That's
time
true.
by
So expressive. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
the
fun to be
expression
around.
of it physically and mentally and emotionally all at once. It doesn't make them an integrated personality, which is when that becomes a single unity,
Hmm.
but it's going in that direction. And other people tend to be hit and miss. They engage physically when they're doing something physical. They engage mentally when they're doing something mentally. They engage emotionally when they're doing something emotional. And they don't have all three going on at the same time, the way this particular culture is really good at doing. And it's not surprising when you look at I mean, it's the only country in the world that has a pope. It had a pope and a king and a president all at the same time. So, and it's a very artistically expressive culture because it takes that to artistically express. You have to do all three of those things. And so I'm just making the point that when you start talking about expressing love fully, it means a lot of different things. It means doing it fully. It means giving all of yourself to the world and then giving love to yourself and through yourself to the world, not just your personality.
Whew.
So you can express your personality fully to the world, which the Italians are doing. And that means it can be someone you like or don't like. But if you're going to express love through that personality to the world, you're going to have to get out of the way. You're going to have to let it come through. Because if you stop it and reinterpret it through the personality, then you're going to take the livingness out of love and you're going to substitute your livingness in place of it. And that's what happens when we tell a story. Someone tells you a story and you go, oh, this is a story that Taylor told me about when she went fishing. And so you tell the story, but it lacks your telling of the story, which adds a fullness to it about what happened.
Right.
Now, that's just the throughput of love. But until we've identified it, till we've given it reality as its own summation, and that's why Christ consciousness and love are so interpenetrated, because that's a consciousness fully invested with love and giving itself fully as love freely to the world, and not censoring itself, which is one of the great errors of the Bible. What's one of the great errors of the Bible? The great error of the Bible is that love is ever going to withdraw itself from you. It's ever going to judge you as not good enough or not perfect enough or not loving enough. And so it's going to turn its face away from you. Love is constitutionally incapable of doing that, because it simply is not in it to do that. It's in you to turn its face away from you. It's in you to reject it or not. It's in you to invite it in. That's up to you. That's a nature of free will. Mm-hmm. So expressing love fully is obviously always our choice. It's your choice. You do as much of that as you intend to do. And by withholding the fullness of it to others, to your family, to yourself, to Sam, the dog, or wherever you're holding it back 100%, you're doing that. You're being the arbitrator. You're being the judge. I'll judge when I should love you. I'll judge how I should love you. I'll judge when you deserve to have me love you. And that's qualified love. But by the act of qualifying it itself, you filtered out all of it.
Yeah. Sounds pretty fucked up. You just lay it out, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just is it's a fucked up way to live. But that's what we think about, because we are consumed with the idea of our ego and constantly holding on to it like it was going to slip out of our hands. I mean, you wake up every morning after having gone to sleep for hours without your ego telling you what to think and feel. So yet you wake up in the morning and you haven't forgotten how to be Taylor. It comes back. The ego is not something you need to concern yourself so damn much with, or anyone really. But it's the thing that's we're using, it's constantly in use because you're acting constantly toward the world. Well, why are you not constantly expressing love to the world instead of your ego? Well, because you don't want to. It's really that simple. It's,
Yeah. But I do want to.
well, there is that stage of wanting, of saying, look, there's no reason for you to hate yourself in spite of all of the terrible things you've done. Taylor's still fairly acceptable to the human race. Now, in some
That's why I love
cultures,
that Bible story when, this woman committed adultery and, their townspeople, I'm going to botch this story, but the townspeople all ready to stone her to death, right? And Jesus comes walking along.
yeah,
And he said, ask, who amongst you haven't sinned against, love
let
the
him throw the
Father?
first one.
And he said, I'll throw
Anybody
the
not?
first
Anybody
stone.
never
And they
done
all,
it? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it's, you got to get over that. You got to get over that because
Well,
everybody's done it.
because it's a kind of a problem. We're all sinners in that respect. Now, there may be a culture somewhere where none of them are. None of them are false to love. I don't know where that culture would be. Certainly not on Earth. Well, it's just a matter of growing up and training and realizing that your individual identity, the I nature of Taylor or Dan or anyone, isn't harmed by expressing love through it, but it is affected. If you start expressing love through your ego, it's going to change you. It's going to harm the idea of your ego the way that it is now. Now, whether you like that harm, because it's cleaning it up, it's turning it into something that has a constantly positive rapport. If you want that, then you're going to suffer the consequences of expressing love through you. But don't think there won't be. There are. And the more people get to know you're that kind of a person, the more they're going to anticipate you being that way. God help you if they anticipate you being loving all the time. It's just like, what is that about? Why are we against that? So the thing I'm saying is that if you're going to express it fully, you're going to have to see it like the headlights on your car. You're going to have to see it coming out the front, because it's got to come through in order to touch the world around you. And it's kind of hard for people to remember that when you're looking at another person, and this is why we don't like them on sight, or we do like them on sight. When you're looking at another person, you're looking through your own emotional body, number one. You're looking through your own feelings. Now, you don't necessarily see those feelings, but they are coloring your perception of someone else, particularly if there's a big difference. The moment it's a woman, you're seeing them differently than if it were a man. And now we have all these people who are sort of uncertain about whether they're women or men. And we're trying to develop a certain sensitivity in humans to see them positively in that light. And you okay?
Me? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking about, what Jung said about sort of those things. When he talks about, you achieve this, if you're a man, a super masculinity, but then there comes a point where the step for you is you got to step into embracing the I think he calls it the anima. But it's like that part of you that is this feminine, and
Right.
it doesn't mean you are that, it's just this integration that allows you to have that compassionate side of yourself, that empathetic side, the nurturing side. And then, otherwise you hit this wall. If you can't take those steps, it doesn't mean you have to reject your masculine side. And it's kind of what you're talking about.
But
you're against.
You do have to regard the blend.
Yes. Right.
Because it's required of life to And this is a requirement established for the purpose of the universe. The purpose of the universe is being served in this universe through the separation of opposites, through the separation of sexes, through the separation of male and female. But that doesn't mean you are not both.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're, that's in the animal creatures.
Right.
That's in the world around you. But if you have to, but you've got to remember that human animals are not who we are. We're living in a human animal, and the human animal conforms to the animal kingdom. It has two sexes.
To wrap your mind around when you're not used to looking at it from that point of view, by the way.
Well, it's something to just consider when you're looking at your masculine side or your feminine side, and to say, okay, because my sex is divided into masculine, and over time, it's been quite a while since this happened to us. So over time, we have accentuated for the first, at the beginning of the separation between masculine and feminine, you were 100% feminine. If in that particular lifetime you were female, you might have been male in that lifetime. Because in the esoteric world of discussing reincarnation, people go back and forth.
Right.
I don't know what the formula is. I didn't invent the formula. I don't know how love relates to it, because I don't know how love thinks. But it's there, and we are experiencing it because we are choosing to take on human character. But if you'll notice, as things evolve, and you learn more and more through more and more incarnations, more and more opportunities to be male, to be female, you're growing closer and closer together in it. And there's a point at which your balance between your masculine in you and your feminine in you are going to come to equal. And then you're going to be, from an appearance point of view, you're not going to look probably like a lumberjack anymore. You'll probably look more, assuming you're masculine, you'll look more feminine or more masculine or more balanced, 50-50. And you see people in the world around you that are more androgynous. They look like they could be a male or a female. And they act maybe blended well with both. But what they like or don't like in terms of an appetite or an attraction has really nothing to do with probably any of that. I expect that at a certain point that you would lose interest in the differences between the sexes, because you would simply have had enough male and enough female experience that you're not attracted towards it or rejected of it. You just simply are it. And when that happens in someone, then they become androgynous. Do they become hermaphroditic? I doubt it. Not in this particular cycle. But they do become androgynous. They become blended so completely with masculine and feminine that they don't appear to be one or the other, really. Now, in between, on the way to that, there's a lot of opportunity for confusion.
Right.
In ourselves of what we are in this particular lifetime that we're living. Now, I'm of the opinion, and I don't have my opinion based on anything scientific because I'm not a psychologist, and I don't think the psychologists particularly know what to do about the whole issue because they don't understand the spiritual implications in love. If you're going to inhabit, if love is going to cohabit with you fully, if you're going to fully express love, you're going to have to be able to fully express your masculine side and your feminine side, your emotional side, your intellectual side. Now, that's just going to take some opening up. It's going to take some non-prejudice. Gloria Steinem's going to have a hard time expressing love in the world as long as she's going to be uncaring towards the masculine side. Not that she is. I didn't know Gloria, but hold
Lawrence
on.
Daniels.
Sorry about that. Um, you know what I don't know? Oh, it's over here. You talk among yourselves. Yes, Lawrence.
Well, something else too. It's like when you're dealing with those opposites in yourself, you bring them to balance, it becomes a third thing, really. Ultimately, yeah. It's like you're not this or that anymore. You're integrated, but it doesn't mean you're just the two blended. It means you're something that is both already. Yeah.
Now, ask that question again. I was texting something to
Okay.
Larry.
So, just because we're looking at this opposites and this or that, and it's like when you come to that place of balance, it's not like you just become both. It's like you become a third thing that has both contained within it. Yeah. It's not.
Well, it's yes and no, because if you light a match, it's burning. It's not wood and it's not carbon, but it's both because it's burning. And eventually it's 100% carbon because all the wood's burned and you become charcoal. And you started out no carbon at all. You just had a little sulfur tip with some stuff on it up there to make it go. And human beings are just becoming charcoal. We're burning. We're on fire. We're on fire with the energy of life and the energy of consciousness. And it's burning up the dross in our being. It's burning up that which is neither. It's just wood. It hasn't become pure. It hasn't become what happens when it is consumed by fire. When it becomes consumed by the fire of living, the fire of consciousness, the fire of spirit, over a period of time, we take on a new form. We literally transform and transmute into a being that is, we don't become burnt matches, but we become something else. And then that thing that we become is capable of carrying a quality of life in the form of love and in form of energy and frequency in itself in a different way than we did before. So there's a lot of
it. Right.
Huh?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's still contained within it, but it's not that.
Yeah. We've changed the physical form in which we're invested has been altered by the process itself because we're interconnected with the life around us that is undergoing burning. It's undergoing purification. It's undergoing transformation and transmutation over and over and over as it upgrades its quality of vibration and being towards a higher state. So a lot of things are going on in the alchemy of living, all of which love knows about. It knows all of that because it's life invested in causing all of it. It knows what it's doing and it knows why it's doing it. And we know one little tiny measure of it. So taking on the fullness of it just means stop resisting it. Don't expect yourself to take on all of love because all of love is a very big ocean. But if you stop resisting it, then you can swim in it. You can move with it. You can be invested by its grace and by its transformation and transmutation, and you can experience wonderful changes in relationship to the greater life in which we live. And human beings are incredibly equipped to share that coexistence with a vast amount of intelligent love, loving beings, places in the universe. It's just what we're capable of encompassing and including is immense. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what just a human being is capable of. And that has come about on our planet because love joined us. I don't know that that's true of any other planet in the universe. I cannot, and that doesn't try to make us unique or special, although I think humanity on this earth is unique and special. It's just as unique and special as a lot of people who think there's no other life in the universe but ours makes it. They're wrong, of course, because the universe is life. That's what it's doing. It's loving everything. So, but by taking on no resistance to expressing it fully and seeing yourself doing it, you're walking into love. By putting love behind you, turning your back on it, and then giving it out in front of you, you're walking into it. That's how you enter it. You want to know how to enter love fully? Don't face it. Turn your back on it.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it is interesting, but
because
it
you always
works.
want to put it in front of you. You want to be looking at it, you know?
Well, but you can only put it in front of you by putting it through you. Take it
Mhm.
in the back, take it out the front, and now it's flowing with you. And your ego is changing. You're not the source of yourself then. Yourself is just piggybacking on the energy of love that's coming through. And that's going to change you because you're going to get used to it and you're going to get to like it. And if you start acting in ways that chase it out, turn it around the other way and send it back, you're not going to like that feeling. You're not going to like
Then you're moving
suddenly.
with source, right?
And I look, from experience, I can tell you, if you turn your back on love by making you find your group experience with others. This is something that Journey to the East expresses fully in its book.
Herman Hesse.
Herman Hesse's book, yeah. It's, when you're fully invested in a group and the group is fully invested in this promotion of love through itself and it's going on about it, and you're not fully aware of everything about what the group is up to because you're not the leader of the group. You're just one of the people who really enjoys the sensation of being engaged with it all. And it feels right to you, feels good to you, so you're doing it. But then you commit an act or do an act of forgetfulness or an act of violence or an act of loss of balance or intelligent control, and suddenly you've rejected the love. By rejecting the love, you rejected your group. Now that's not so true of human beings, but we play out that same story, but we play it out with egos. Oh, you said something the group doesn't like, so we're going to reject you. But that's not how it works in love. In love, we reject ourselves by acting against it. The group goes right on being what it is, but we have stepped away. And because we weren't strong enough to see this is what we had and this is what we stepped away to, this suddenly disappears and we think, what happened? I didn't have enough of a graft to it to keep it fully going. So I lost my center with it and it slipped away. And that is a terrible, terrible feeling to have if you lose your group. And to be rejected by your group is terrible. It's always terrible. As Christ found out, it can be a rough go if the group rejects you because they're on a journey and they decided you're not part of that journey. You're not where we're going. Not that we want to have some of you or even a little bit of you, none of you. You're out. And we're going to make it our point. We're going to make a point of it by crucifying the hell out of you, which is a pretty thorough rejection when you think about it.
Yeah.
And so, but if that's your
and that graft, it's like you want to keep that graft going constant.
Yeah.
So it's like, where's the place in you strengthen that? I mean, because that's what we're talking about here.
Well, in his case, even his own team rejected him. That's what he meant when he got the message. When he got the message of the whole story was going to go this way, in the Garden of Gethsemane, in the olive grove, he realized even these guys that are so committed to me and so committed to this purpose I have and to this spirituality that I'm offering through me, they're going to reject it. Now, Judas rejected it because he thought it was the wrong thing. He thought the Christ was the wrong guy because he wasn't going to kick ass and take names. Love doesn't do that. He wasn't so concerned about love because he didn't know what it was. But he was concerned about having a Messiah that would support the Jews. He was a true spiritual supporter of the Jews in himself. But he saw that Jesus wasn't going to do it the way he represented it. And he wasn't mature enough to recognize that all these freaking miracles going on around him should have been some kind of a clue that maybe he might be wrong about this, at least enough to not turn the guy in. But he didn't. He made that fatal mistake and he rejected himself from his group. And then the suffering of the rejection from that group caused him to reject himself because he realized he was wrong. But you don't always know you're wrong until you do it.
Yeah.
And once you've done it, no one can save you from how you feel about yourself. Jesus never condemned him for it. He did tell him, whatever it is you're going to, at the Last Supper, he took him aside and said, whatever it is you're going to do it quickly. Right. Because, there's a schedule here. And so he did. But he certainly rejected himself as a result of it, which shows you just how much conscience he actually had. Pontius Pilate didn't maybe lose that much sleep.
Yeah, it's almost like he knew what was coming, right?
Yeah.
And and he loves Judas. So it's hard to let someone walk into something like that and even give them your blessing. It's like,
well, I don't think at the beginning when he took him on as a disciple, he realized he knew he had an issue because he knew all of them. He's a fairly perfect human being, with or without love. But he collected these guys after he collected love. Love was the first thing he collected from John the Baptist at the baptism. Then he started creating followers. I don't think he had, I could be wrong. I'm not a Bible scholar. I just like the story because it's real. And it's the most important story in the human race of all. I mean, Hercules' story is important, but nobody knows what it was that makes it important. But because you're not even sure that he actually lived. But I can assure you he did live. And he did do in himself the things that make the 12 Labors of Hercules a story worth remembering. And I think he ranks probably number 3 or 4 of the all-time greats, the goats of humanity. One is the Buddha, one is the Christ. And so, there are certain people who do things.
Yeah, it's true. It goes back to the old, let those with ears to hear, though. Because it's like you can't just take things as they're said. You have to actually kind of examine them in yourself for those to be true, right?
Well, to the credit of these guys that we so easily judge, it's easy to judge a Judas and we see them in the world who, Gandhi was shot by one of his own followers. Mm-hmm. See, the way evil has to work at this sort of a game is you have to get the betrayal from within. That gives power to it because it can't take a form and do it itself. So it has to convince someone close to it to do it. So with Gandhi, they convinced someone who was in his circle that he was false. He was false to Krishna. So, and this soft-headed idiot fell for it. And for the good of the world, or the good of Krishna, he went ahead and killed him, shot him. And that's how he could get close to him to do that too, by the way. But it's close spiritually, close personally, close physically. Right. So all of this is about our relationship to love. And he, that guy, found out he was wrong because when he shot Gandhi, Gandhi turned and called to Krishna on his way out, saying, "This is where I'm going." I'm going to you. And then the guy realized, uh-oh, I was wrong. He didn't call to the black dude or some other thing. He called to what it is we all worship. So we fall for these stories and we get screwed up and we make tragic mistakes like that, like turning in the Christ to the. It wasn't like they couldn't find him, but we needed a betrayal. Now, that's a rejection in Judas by doing that of love, because that's what he was betraying. He wasn't betraying his buddy, Jesus. He's betraying love itself, which is in the world with him as what is the king of the world. Love is the king of the world. And there isn't any other, as you know, there is no other creator, there's no other ruler, there's no other judge, there's no other actor. So if we betray that, then we have betrayed the root of life itself. Now, it isn't an issue until you do it.
Yeah.
When someone gives you the opportunity and you take it, then you know where you stand.
And you know it
learn
instantly.
the lesson. Huh?
Yeah. And you know it instantly.
Yeah. No, well, that's because understanding follows experience. That's how you gain it. You have to have an experience to gain understanding. There's no other way to get it. You get it through living. And that's why I said in this, expressing love fully is how you gain the solemn right to it. The deep personal relationship of it acting in your life is by you acting with it, by you putting it out there and then saying, well, that didn't work. It's like trying to start a fire. If you don't want to freeze to death, then you better get a fire. Well, I'm from Alaska, so that's how it works up there. You better get a fire going.
It's wet there.
And then that's what's even worse. It's not only cold as hell, but it's wet.
Yeah.
And wet and cold with fire can be a challenge. So
yeah, but I've always looked at going towards it, so I really like this different perspective of putting it behind you, and that way you're moving with it. You're right. You're coming from it instead of trying to go towards it, because you kind of push it away.
If you're seeking it for yourself, which I'm not arguing with that. Buddhists are seeking a relationship with the Buddha and a relationship with wisdom. But wisdom is not a thing.
No, it's funny. I was explaining that to Johnny last night too, because you always think of wisdom as like intelligence, with some
perfect
experience, Yeah, but it's not. It's like I told him what the definition, according to our buddy DK, Joel Cool, is that wisdom is love applied intelligently with your will. You're using your own will. Which
engages your whole anatomy.
Exactly. And you're acting, but the first thing is that it's love. Love is the first part of the equation. And then you're using these other tools, this intelligence, and you're using your own will to put that forth.
And now that's true. You're using your will and your intelligence. But where is the love? So until you bring that, and look, we leave that aspect out of the Buddha's story. Most of the time when we think about the Buddha, we forget about the fact that it's love that made and it's a deep, and it's an ancient story.
And that's kind of like why when you look at people that you look at as wise, it's because they're doing what they love. It's like, that's why they're able to carry that wisdom, right? It's because
but don't think of it as students who just didn't get the meaning of the class.
No.
No, in this respect, intelligence applied with will, when it works, when it succeeds at its mission. You're trying to make beer. You want it to taste like beer, not some sour fermented slop. So you have to get the recipe correct, and you have to brew it properly, and then you have to let it build up some bubbles in the stuff. And then when you pour out a nice frothy glass of beer, it actually is worth drinking. Yeah. Or anything else you're trying to accomplish. It takes will and intelligence. And until humanity began to talk about love as if it were real, we only had to judge the success by whether we liked the beer or not. We didn't condition ourselves to think about whether the beer had anything to do with love at all, or basically any other human action. We really didn't have love as part of the recipe, even though the Buddha has had love as part of the recipe for thousands of years. But it wasn't, even in Buddhism, it wasn't expressed as a necessity. Compassion became, I don't know when compassion became a part of the Buddhic gift, but I don't think it was always there. I don't think it was it was always there, but it wasn't a discussion. The guy who is the Buddhist, in modern terms, a Thich Nhat Hanh, or someone who is a true exponent of the heart of the Buddha, is peaceful, nonviolent, because love is nonviolent and peaceful.
Harmless, yeah.
And that's a big argument in the human race, because what do you do with violent people? Well, you love them. And that just is like, well, reject, not going to do that, because, and if you look at what those guys did to the Israelis, you can understand that point of view. Love doesn't work with these doped up lunatics that are killing our babies and our women at a party. That they chose to take that course of action at a party. They're not standing up saying, don't take our water, don't come across our boundary, they're not fighting for a principle or for a mission or for their own families. They just lay in waste with hate to somebody else's life. So it doesn't seem logical to meet that with love. But that's because we don't experience love in ourselves, because we haven't expressed it fully enough to have it flood through our emotional body, our mental body, and our physical body to tell us, well, hell, this could change everything. This could change the way those sot-wits think or feel or act. So we don't know the power of it. By acting loving towards someone doesn't transfer the power of love to them. It only gives them an idea of how we think it looks, but they would have to find it in themselves, to bring it up in themselves and engage it in order to be transformed by it. Their free will would have to acknowledge it. But if you gave them love through yourself, actually infused your enemy with it, then you're invoking it in them. You're invoking their own response to love in themselves. And then we wait to see the outcome. We wait to see whether love in them has any chance of bringing them the breath of life. Now, if they're really far gone, and those guys obviously were pretty far gone, maybe it won't. Maybe they will overwhelm love even when it rises up in them and reject it and go back to the axe.
Maybe. But look at Paul. I mean, on the road to Damascus, right?
Well, but he was not a hate. Well, I don't know what he was thinking, but he was obviously wrong.
He was
thinking,
people.
he was getting people killed. It wasn't that he was turning them in to be judged. He was turning them in to be wrecked for being Christians. And they were mostly Jews. So he was in conflict. And what was he in conflict with? He was in conflict with what he was doing. Now, how long had he been doing it? I don't know. I don't know how long Jesus had been gone, but not very long. This didn't happen very long after Jesus had had his crucifixion, because the other guys were not a lot older than him. He was basically the same age, because they all died about the same time, except the ones that were murdered for doing what they were doing. So you have to look at that and realize, okay, he's arguing with himself. And this is why he had the flash of light in his brain that blinds him. This
Right.
is a physical response. This is a physical response between the pineal and the pituitary gland.
Uh-huh.
The pineal gland in your body connects you to your higher self,
Right.
basically. It's a soul self. And the pituitary gland, did I say pituitary? The pineal gland connects you to your higher self. The pituitary gland connects you to your personality. So his personality in the world was going about the business of being a good Jew and turning these things into the Romans and getting these people whacked, thinking he was serving his God and serving his religious leaders and serving his duty like a military man would.
Yeah.
And this is what happened to the guy in Les Miserables, right? That has to jump off the bridge because he lets Jean Val, whatever his name was, go free. And it crumbled his whole system of thinking. His whole system of law and order fell apart when he realized that love trumps it, trumps everything. So the pineal and the pituitary are increasing in tension and vibration because he's having trouble with the whole business. He's not comfortable with it. These are Jewish people that he cares about. This is a religion that happened because of a Jew. This is a difference in opinion about God that shouldn't cause the result of death of other people. So he's fussing with all this in his mind and his conscience to the point where the vibration of the two meet. One of them starts getting more, and this happens in the pineal and the pituitary. They're right next to each other in the middle of your brain, so they don't have very far to go if they put out a magnetic field one to the other, and pretty soon, bang. And when they meet, it can slam open this blazing light in the head that blinds us for a period of, in his case, 3 days.
Which, have you heard these stories from the Bible when, I don't know if it's the moment of crucifixion or the moment of resurrection. I think it's resurrection, where the earth starts to shake and there's stories of the earth quaking. But what the part of these kind of stories that I find incredibly fascinating is all the way up in Ireland, right? This is recognized there by what's just the planet is experiencing from the resurrection and the ascension of Christ at that moment, because it's all recorded.
It was at the moment of death.
Oh, it was at the moment of death. Okay. And this is all recorded, right? And they wrote the Book of Kells and these different things before Christianity got up and moving and even traveled up there. They already had these stories from that moment.
Well, that could be true, or it could be anecdotal. I mean, a lot of archaeologists like to become famous.
Place it all. Right.
So
it's dated. They had written records. So
okay, without arguing with the reality of it, it's very plausible, because this is not a local event. It was a local event right up to that moment. But the moment that Christ dies on the cross, it sets in motion. And it's only at that moment, because what Jesus does on the cross isn't set in stone. It's up to him. It's up to him keeping that covenant, keeping that connection to love, staying loving, staying 100% engaged with love, letting it 100% express through him up to that moment. And he did. He held out. That's why he said at the very last, he says, "It is finished," meaning I'm done. I don't even know by that time if he even knew they were crucifying him or cared. How did I just suddenly turn sideways? That is funny.
That can help.
That's what crucifixion will do to you.
It'll get you flipped up, won't it?
Yeah. And that is hilarious. Yeah.
Oh no. Now we're really shaken. Hello. I lost Dan. I think he left us. So we should probably wrap this up anyways. We're about 20 minutes over the hour, which is longer than we like to go. So expressing love, and we'll leave it there, and we will see you next time. Thank you.